Welcome to the sleepy universe, where the slowest forces cradle the loudest mysteries. Tonight, let your thoughts wander beneath the surface, far below the mountains, beneath the layers of stone and silence. There, immense chambers. Still, you'd never know they once shaped continents, sky, and time. These are not monsters. They are ancient lungs of the planet, breathing in eras, exhaling change. So lie back, feel the earth hold you, and drift slowly into the deep, warm story of the sleeping giants below your feet. You lie on your bed, cradled by the familiar stillness of night. The walls are quiet, the air calm, your body slowly releasing the weight of the day beneath you. The mattress gives way to floor, then foundation, then earth. And deeper still, far below your resting bones, the ground begins to remember itself. You may think of the planet as solid and still, a stone orb suspended in a silent sky. But the truth is softer and stranger. The ground beneath you is not. Still, it never has been. It only waits, in ways too slow for your waking senses to notice. But now, as your thoughts begin to float, and your mind drifts toward that other form of knowing, dreaming, you can begin to feel it, the slow, ancient shifting of the earth beneath your skin. The planet you call home is not a finished thing. It is a work in quiet progress, sculpted over eons by pressures so deep and slow they escape your ordinary grasp. The crust on which cities rise and empires fall is nothing more than a thin shell floating on a sea of fire. Beneath your home, beneath the soil and the roads and the roots of the trees, is a surface that moves. It slides, it buckles, it folds like heavy cloth across a restless body. And while you sleep, it breathes. You don't hear it, you don't feel it. But the earth beneath your bed is stirring, as it always has. If you could sink down, gently and without fear, you would pass first through layers of human time lost foundations, buried pottery, ancient ashes swept into soil, and then, deeper, through the bedrock of civilizations long gone, into stone laid down when continents were other shapes entirely. Still deeper, past the crust, the rock becomes warmer, softer, more like clay, pressed by gravity, bent by heat. It moves not like wind, not like water, but like thoughts, invisible, constant. This is the mantle, the dream layer of the earth. Here mountains are conceived. Here continents ride ancient waves of molten rock. Here something vast begins to stir. These motions are not frantic. They do not chase or flee. They are geologic. Lullabies, movements that take millions of years to complete a breath. Plate tectonics, we call it the drifting of Earth's outer shell in great slabs the size of continents. But to your dreaming mind, it feels less like drift and more like tide. Africa moves away from South America like lovers in slow partying. India once surged northward, pressing into Asia and lifting the Himalayas into the sky. And beneath these, silent dancers, heat rises from the core, lifting pockets of magma toward the crust. Like smoke curling under a lid, this heat is old, older than language, older than bones, born in the birth of the planet itself, when gravity and collisions lit the core like a furnace. It has burned ever since, a gentle, endless fire at the heart of the earth, and it is this fire that breathes life into volcanoes. Not just the fiery peaks you see in textbooks or films, but a more subtle kind, the giants who do not roar but wait. The Supervolcanoes. They do not look like mountains. They are not cones or craters. They do not shout their presence to the sky. Instead, they stretch out wide, flat and unassuming. They hide in plains and lakes, in valleys and meadows. They wear forests like blankets. They sleep beneath national parks. Their quietness is what makes them easy to forget, dangerous to ignore. But you are not here to fear them. You are here to understand the quietness they share with you. The stillness of a supervolcano is not silence. It is a long, slow inhale. You are floating now, just above such a place. You cannot see it from above. There are no obvious signs. But the ground is breathing in rhythms too vast for your clocks. Tiny uplifts in the earth, microscopic tremors. The gas that seeps up like ghostly breath, it is not waking, but it is alive. To sleep beside such force is not a threat. It is a reminder of scale, of patience, of the deep rhythms that pulse beneath your fast and fleeting world. You live in cities that change in decades, in cultures that shift in centuries, but the earth changes in epochs. It waits, it remembers, and sometimes, when the pressure rises and the rock can no longer hold its breath, it speaks. Do not erupt often. That is part of their mystery. They do not erupt on schedules, or with the fury of smaller volcanoes. They gather their power slowly over tens of thousands of years, pressurizing vast underground chambers of molten rock. These chambers do not sit like ticking bombs. They exist more like oceans beneath stone-heavy, hidden, heaving with heat. The eruption of a supervolcano is not just a local event. It does not destroy only a region or a nation. It touches the sky. It rewrites the climate. Ash drifts around the planet like memory itself, blocking sunlight, cooling the air, altering the rhythm of life for years. But that is a story for later. For now, the world is quiet. The chamber beneath your feet is resting. It has no hurry. The magma waits, curled into heat and patience. You roll gently in your sleep, unaware of the history your bed rests upon. But the rocks remember. Yellowstone remembers. Lake Toba remembers. Topo remembers. These places hold the ghost of fire. They have erupted, yes, but, more importantly, they have endured. They are no longer disasters. They are landscapes. They are home to birds and trees, to rivers and roots. They are stories carved into stone. You begin to realize that supervolcanoes are not just threats, they are teachers. They remind you of the scale at which Earth lives. They remind you that what sleeps can still shape the future. And they remind you too of the importance of rest not as idleness, but as preparation. The Earth stores its energy in stillness. It gathers heat beneath the crust, not to destroy, but to renew. You do the same. Every night, as your body slows, as your breath softens, as your mind lets go, you store the energy of becoming dot, and just as the earth shifts quietly beneath your weight, so too do your thoughts rearrange in the dark. Dreams rise like magma from the deep. Some will fade by morning, some will reshape you. Sleep is not passive. It is transformation in waiting. In that way, you and the earth are the same, carriers of silent change, guardians of pressure and release. You are floating now, not in fear, but in fascination. The world beneath you is not fixed. It is unfolding, and in its unfolding, it sings, not in sound, but in heat, in tremble, in uplift. It sings in ways you cannot hear, but can begin to feel. The earth is not done becoming. Neither are you, so you rest, not to escape the world, but to be remade with it. You lie still, knowing that stillness is an illusion, beautiful, necessary, but never the whole truth. Beneath your calm is motion. Beneath your quiet is pressure. Beneath your sleep is a dreaming world. And somewhere, deep beneath your bed, in a place no shovel could reach, a chamber waits. It is not angry. It is not cruel. It is simply full of heat, of history, of the potential for change. You are safe, but you are not alone. The ground beneath you is not still, and that, somehow, is comforting. You drift now, wrapped in layers of stone and story. Above you, stars blink slowly. Around you, the world exhales. Below you, the ancient warmth of the earth holds you close, humming softly of secrets yet to rise. And in the hush between breaths, you begin to wonder what happens when the silence deepens and begins to glow. Time is not what it seems. You are used to counting it in hours and years, in birthdays and seasons, in the ticking of clocks and the turning of calendars. But the earth does not keep your time. The earth thinks in centuries, in epochs, in layers of stone that remember what your species has long since forgotten. As you sink into sleep, your breath slow and steady, your mind begins to loosen its grip on human time. And down below, deep beneath your pillow, beneath the floor, beneath the roots and the bedrock, time begins to stretch, not forward, but downward, through layers of memory pressed into stone, through warmth, through weight, through eons. The rock beneath you is not dead. It is not the cold, unmoving foundation you might imagine. It is history, folded and pressed into itself, like old letters sealed under wax. Every inch of earth holds a record of what came before, not written in ink, but in minerals and pressure, in the alignment of crystals, in the tilt of sediment, in the carbon of ancient trees turned to coal, in the ash of ancient eruptions turned to pumice. The earth keeps time by compressing it, by folding the past into silence. And as you drift into deeper rest, you begin to feel it, how weight makes memory, how pressure is not just force, but story. Deep time moves differently. It has no hurry. It makes mountains out of dust, oceans out of rain. It can split continents, erase entire landscapes, raise seabeds into summits, all without ever rushing. You float now through one such timeline, one so slow your waking mind could never hold it. You pass through layers of limestone born from vanished seas, through coal seams grown from ancient forests that once hummed with dragonflies and thunder. You move through the scars of tectonic collisions, through folds where continents met and embraced and broke apart again, all before the first humans even looked up and wondered. And all the while, something else is moving. Heat, not in sparks or flames, but in whispers, rising from the core of the planet like a memory too deep to fade. This is not fire like the kind that warms your hands or dances in candles. It is pressure's twin. It builds slowly, invisibly, over millions of years. In the mantle, where rock flows like syrup beneath enormous weight, heat gathers. It lifts and shifts and softens the stone, carving invisible pathways. This is where magma begins, not with eruption, but with heat accumulating like thought, like potential, like breath. You pass now through zones of temperature where rocks melt, not all at once, but partially, like ice turning to slush. These pockets, small, at first begin to cluster. They draw together like drops of rain on glass. The magma forms slowly, rising into weak places in the crust, pooling, waiting. This is not the sudden violence you may associate with volcanoes. This is slow alchemy, a patient collection of molten stone. And the more it gathers, the more pressure. builds above it. The rock above sags slightly. Fractures widen. The chamber swells. But still, it does not rise. It waits. Deep time is its clock. Supervolcanoes begin here, in this long silence. Not with explosions, but with accumulation. Not with sound, but with pressure. You float now beside such a chamber miles wide, deeper than mountains, glowing with ancient heat. Its magma is not pure. It is mixed with gases, with crystals, with echoes of older eruptions. It is heavy, it is alive, and it is surrounded by rock that, for now, holds it in. That rock has held for thousands of years. It may hold for thousands more, but it is not unchanging. Every degree of heat, every shift of tectonic weight, every tiny tremor alters the balance. Pressure builds not in chaos, but in slow choreography. Above this chamber, the ground is calm, forests grow, rivers meander, elk graze, and campers laugh, and hikers stand atop quiet ridges without ever suspecting what sleeps below. But the pressure is still growing. It rises as surely as the sap in trees above it. Every molecule of magma adds to the quiet tension. It's not a matter of if, but of when. And when, in deep time, is always a question without an answer. For some chambers, the pressure will rise and rise, only to cool and freeze in place, forming granite beneath the crust. For others, a tipping point will come and with it, release. But this is not that moment. Tonight, nothing breaks. Nothing bursts. Tonight is about the building, not the breaking. You are inside the silence of formation, the kind that shapes without sound. This pressure is not unlike your own inner thresholds, the way thoughts and feelings gather slowly inside you over weeks, years, lifetimes, until one day they shape your choices. Until one day they rise into words or actions or dreams. You, too, are a chamber. You, too, hold heat beneath stillness. And sleep is the place where your own pressure softens, where your magma rests. The earth is wise in its waiting. It does not rush the forming of a supervolcano. It allows the chamber to become vast, to stretch and evolve. It is not a single breath, but a sequence of deep inhalations, layered over tens of thousands of years. And just like the rhythms of your own body, the rhythms of the earth pulse without panic. There is no urgency in nature, only unfolding, only becoming. As you move slowly through the mantle, you begin to sense how alive the earth is, not with noise, but with motion, not with action, but with intention. Every rock you pass holds energy. Every layer you cross has felt the heat of transformation. And the deeper you drift, the more the pressure presses around you, not in threat, but in welcome. This is a place few will ever truly imagine, let alone feel, but you do feel it. Not with your hands, but with your attention. Your awareness sinks into it, melts into it. You become part of the deep time flow. This is not something your clocks will ever measure. Your calendar cannot grasp it, but your dreaming mind can. In sleep, you remember what your waking self forgets, that you are not separate from this planet, not an observer watching from above, but a participant in its breath. Your bones carry minerals born in ancient magma. Your blood echoes the ocean that once covered every mountain. You are Earth, remembering itself. And now, as you hover above this vast and silent chamber, you feel no fear. The pressure is immense, yes, but it is also beautiful. It is what gives rise to mountains, to new crust, to the rare but vital moments when the earth reshapes itself. Without pressure, there is no creation. Without heat, no change. And so you rest now, not despite the pressure, but because of it. You let it hold you, the way stone holds fire, the way sleep holds dreams. The magma does not rise tonight. It turns, slowly, within its chamber. It thickens, it swells, but it does not erupt. It is content to wait, to deepen, to prepare. You too can be content to rest. There is no need to rise, no need to burst, just this gathering, just this deepening, just this quiet readiness. And so the earth beneath you continues to press its memories into form. Continents shift, but you feel only the stillness. The heat grows, but you feel only warmth. The chamber breathes, but you feel only calm. This is the nature of deep time. It holds everything but reveals itself only to those who listen slowly. You are listening now, with your whole body, and in the pressure you find peace. And just as your dreams begin to drift across this molten world, you wonder what happens next when magma becomes a mind and chambers begin to think. You are drifting now, not across land or sky, but through the stone quiet heart of the earth, into rooms that no human has ever walked, but that have existed for longer than your species has drawn breath. These are not rooms of architecture or intention. They are not carved by tools or imagined by engineers. These are natural vaults, born of pressure and time. Spaces where liquid rock gathers in silence, far beneath the reach of sunlight. These are the magma chamber's secret lungs of the planet, filling slowly, exhaling only once in an age. You float deeper into one now, not with fear, but with a strange sense of awe. You are not falling. You are arriving. The earth has many layers, and the further you descend, the more these layers blur the boundary between what is solid and what is molten. At a certain depth, rock behaves like something in between, a texture neither hard nor soft, but one that yields when pressed, that moves if coaxed. And in this pliable world, the planet shapes cavities, vast, hidden reservoirs where melted stone pools like thought in the back of a dreaming mind. You cannot hear them, but they hum, not in sound, but in presence. These are the hidden rooms of magma, and they are always becoming. They do not form in a day or even a century. A magma chamber is a slow architecture. It begins as a trickle-hot rock from the mantle, rising through faults and fractures in the crust, seeking space. It follows the cracks where ancient stresses once pulled the earth apart. It seeps and collects in softer pockets, widening them by heat and pressure. Over time, the trickle becomes a flow. The flow becomes a pool. The pool begins to press outward, reshaping its chamber, but always quietly, always under immense weight. You might imagine fire crashing through rock, but that's not how this begins. This is not the rage of an explosion. This is the patience of accumulation. You float through one of these rooms now, not a sphere, but an irregular vault, shaped by whatever weaknesses the surrounding rock allowed. Its ceiling curves inward slightly. Its walls glow softly, not with visible light, but with latent energy. The magma itself is thick, heavy, restless. It does not boil, it does not bubble. It pulses, it drifts within itself. Some of it has sat here for centuries. Some is newly arrived. Together, it is a living mix of melted minerals and trapped gases, heavy with the memory of the deep. The chamber is quiet, but not still. Convection currents swirl gently inside warm rock, rising, cooler parts sinking. These motions stir the molten soup, rearranging it, shaping the chemistry. Crystals form and melt again. Elements shift places, Pressure fluctuates, though not yet enough to break free. Every motion adds complexity. The chamber matures, like a mind forming new pathways. And just as your thoughts shape your waking world, these subtle internal movements will one day shape the landscape above, though perhaps not for 10,000 years. Above this secret room, the ground appears peaceful. Life flourishes, rain falls, grass sways in wind. But here, below, an ancient force gathers in silence. You are lying tonight above one such chamber, whether you know it or not. Yellowstone, for example, holds a magma reservoir the size of an entire mountain range. But you would never know it by walking the meadows above. The surface is ordinary, even serene. Hot springs gurgle, geysers breathe, elk pass without fear. But the land breathes slightly. The ground lifts and lowers by inches, like the subtle rise and fall of a sleeping chest. The chamber does not threaten. It does not whisper of eruption. It only waits. This is the deep patience of geology, the slow preparation for an event that may never come. Some magma chambers cool over time, becoming great bodies of granite that lie hidden forever, forming the spines of future mountains. Others continue to grow, fed by rising heat from below, until pressure exceeds resistance. But in either case, the formation is the same: careful, slow, hidden. The earth does not rush its work. You drift further now into the heart of this molten space. It is strangely beautiful, though not in any way your waking eyes would recognize. The beauty here is in scale, in process, in age. You are surrounded by a substance that once formed the crust of newborn earth, a substance that will someday rise again and cool into stone, forming cliffs, ridges, or perhaps the fertile soil that feeds a forest. Magma is not destruction, it is transformation, in waiting, and these chambers, though buried, are the crucibles of that becoming. There are layers within the magma itself. Some parts are more viscous, heavier, older. Others are lighter, richer in gas, more volatile. These layers do not mix easily. They stratify like oil and water. But over time, as pressure increases, they may blend, sometimes violently. This mixing can trigger changes, reactions, build-ups. But you are not here for the eruption. You are here to feel what it means to contain such energy without release, to rest beside power and not be consumed by it. The earth holds these chambers as you hold your breath in sleep, not to explode, but to settle, to reshape, to renew. And in that holding, something remarkable happens. The chamber becomes more than just a pocket of molten rock. It becomes a system, an engine, a possibility. Its shape changes the stress on surrounding rock. Its heat alters the chemistry of nearby minerals. Its gases filter upward, emerging as steam or sulfur. It speaks in signs, if you know how to read them, but always softly, always beneath the surface. You consider how much of life depends on what lies beneath. We build our homes on ground we trust to hold us. We drink water that filters through ancient layers of stone. We plant seeds in soil enriched by volcanic ash from eruptions long past. Even now, the most fertile regions on Earth are often those that once burned with fire. The rooms of magma, when they finally rise and cool, become the bones of new landscapes. The crust itself is renewed this way, again and again. Nothing stays unchanged, not even the bedrock. As you drift in this thought, you realize how little we see of the world that holds us. Most of the earth is hidden, not just below, but within, inside its own silences, just like you. There are parts of your mind, your memory, your feeling that others will never see. Rooms where thoughts gather, where heat builds. These inner spaces are not flaws. They are where your changes begin. You contain more than you show. You form new truths in secret. You, too, have hidden chambers, and just as the magma shapes what lies above, so do your inner fires shape your outer life. The feelings that rise slowly, the thoughts that shift your direction, the dreams that, over time, become decisions. Sleep is not the absence of awareness, it is the rearrangement of it. While you rest, your own magma pools and stirs. And in the morning, something new may rise to the surface of realization. A calm, a quiet clarity. You are part of the Earth's story, not apart from it. Your body was shaped by minerals born in these fires. Your instincts, your cycles, your warmth all echo the deep rhythms of this planet. When you lie down to sleep, you return to those rhythms. You rest in geologic trust. You sleep, and the earth continues shaping itself beneath you. The chamber does not tremble tonight. It thickens, it hums, it holds. And above, the stars turn slowly, like the hands of a very old clock. You lie still, wrapped in blankets, unaware of how many generations of rock cradle your bed. But now, in this quiet moment, you feel it. You feel the room beneath the world, the hidden heart of stone, the fire that dreams beneath the ground. And just as you begin to slip into a deeper sleep, you wonder what happens when these silent rooms begin to breathe. You are lying still, but the mountain is moving, not rushing, not tumbling, not shattering, but exhaling, softly, slowly, like an ancient creature releasing the breath it's held for thousands of years. You may not feel it on the surface. The rocks do not shift beneath your feet, the trees do not bow, and the sky does not tremble. But the signs are there if you know where to look. In the warmth rising through a cracked meadow, in the thin trail of steam threading through pine needles, in the shape of a hillside that bulges almost imperceptibly. These are the signs of a mountain breathing, not gasping or roaring, but sounding gently, deeply after millennia of silent pressure. You have wandered now from the hidden magma chambers to the threshold of emergence. The molten world below is no longer content to stay entirely hidden. It is pressing upward, not in eruption yet, not in violence, but in signals, in whispers, in shifts that speak of coming change. Beneath some of the most peaceful places on earth lie sleeping giants' mountains that are not just monuments of stone, but breathing systems of pressure, heat, and gas. Yellowstone, Toba, Topo, they do not erupt often, but they speak slowly and patiently, in breaths of carbon dioxide and sulfur, in the subtle tilts of land, in the warmth of their breath on the belly of the sky. Tonight, you walk gently across one such mountain, in dream. You are not heavy, you do not disturb its surface. The ground beneath your feet is soft with time, the soil fed by the quiet memory of eruptions past. Wildflowers bloom in silent clusters. The roots of old trees wind down into ash beds from eruptions. No one now remembers. Elk step through steam rising from shallow vents. To the eye, it is peace. But you, drifting between waking and sleep, can feel the breath beneath it all. The ground is not still. It is lifting, only slightly centimeters over years, but enough. Enough to be noticed by the instruments planted by curious hands. Enough to be heard if you listen like the earth listens. Slowly, breathing for a mountain is not the same as ours. It is not lungs or air or rhythm. It is the release of gases, the movement of magma toward the surface, the warping of rock as pressure builds. It is the earth stretching before it speaks. And while many of these breaths are harmless signs of adjustment and balance, others are preludes, foreshadowings, the kind of sigh that comes before a long-awaited answer. You are not here to predict such answers. You are here to understand what it means for a mountain to breathe. Below the surface, the magma chamber swells. The pressure has increased, not catastrophically, not yet, but measurably. Crystals within the molten rock are changing. Volatile gases are exsolving, separating from the magma-like bubbles in champagne. These gases rise through cracks, expanding as they move into lower pressure zones. Some escape harmlessly into the atmosphere. Others get trapped, increasing the internal pressure further. This is part of the breath, the slow upward flow, the release through fissures, the shift in the mountain's posture as it adjusts to what lies below and above. Life continues, mostly unaware. Campers roast marshmallows beside warm springs. Tourists snap photos of steaming geysers. Birds sing, winds curl over ridgelines. Even those who live closest to these places often forget that they sit above breathing stone, because the rhythm is slow, because the warnings are long, because for most of human time the mountain sleeps. But sleep is not stillness, and dreams are not empty. The earth's breathing is not uniform. Some mountains sigh in steady, gentle exhales, releasing pressure as it comes. Others hold their breath for longer tens of thousands of years, till the pressure beneath becomes too great. Then a different kind of breath begins, the kind that lifts the land, that cracks the crust, that sends tremors through once quiet valleys. These are not disasters, not yet. They are the final deep inhalations before release. You may ask, how can such vast systems be so patient? How can they hold such pressure for so long? But you only have to look within yourself to know. How many thoughts have you held silently for years? How many feelings, ideas, longings have built inside you slowly, without eruption, without words? You, too, breathe in slow ways. You, too, hold pressure beneath calm surfaces. Mountains are not so different. Their breath is your breath, made longer, stretched across time so vast you must be asleep to sense it. And so you lie here, on the skin of a sleeping giant, and you listen. You hear no roar, no rattle, but you feel a deep and quiet motion. The crust is bowing just slightly, like the lid of a pot beginning to lift. The air above some places smells faintly of sulfur. Geysers erupt with more frequency. Small earthquakes ripple gently through ancient rock. These are breaths, not cries. They do not promise eruption, but they remind us that beneath beauty lies power. Supervolcanoes, when they finally do erupt, are not like ordinary volcanoes. They do not erupt from cones, but from caldrons, giant basins formed when an underground chamber empties so rapidly. The land above it collapses. Before that collapse, there may be weeks of warning, or only days. There may be signs, gas, quakes, deformation, but we cannot always be sure, because the mountain does not erupt on our schedule. It listens to pressure, not prediction. It breathes until it cannot. But that is not tonight. Tonight, it breathes calmly. Tonight, it exhales just enough to continue sleeping. And you, resting quietly on its shoulder, begin to see the strange gift in all this. The world is not predictable, but it is patterned. It breathes in, it breathes out. It holds, it releases. It waits, and when the moment comes, it transforms. That rhythm is not just geological, it is biological, it is emotional, it is yours. You are more like the mountain than you know. The pressure inside you is not your enemy, it is the preparation. For change, your dreams, like magma, rise slowly. Your needs press upward through the layers of your day, and sometimes they need release, not in rage, not in panic, but in breath. A sigh, a word, a shift. You are not here to hold your breath forever. You are here to breathe, as the mountain does, and when the time comes, you will know. You will feel the pressure rise. You will feel the quiet cracks forming in old ways of being. You will feel the heat, and you will release. You will transform. You will cool and settle, and life will grow again upon the landscape you leave behind. But for now, you rest, you listen, you breathe. The mountain beneath you is alive, and so are you. You are not alone in your silence. You are part of something older, deeper, slower. You are part of a planet that exhales, and just as you begin to slip toward deeper sleep, a new thought glows at the edge of your awareness. What happens when the breath becomes a voice and the earth begins to speak? There is a moment the mountain stops breathing, not in death, but in decision. A pause so still it feels sacred, as if the earth itself is gathering focus. All the long, slow sighs are done. The magma has risen, the pressure has peaked, and the hidden chambers you once drifted through, the ones that once glowed in secret, now tremble with purpose. It is no longer a question of if. The earth has chosen to speak, not in words, but in fire. You are here, held inside this silence, not above it, not beside it, but within it, suspended in the breathless space between build-up and release. The world around you is unnervingly calm. Birds nest in the branches, wind brushes through the grass, children laugh in the distance, unaware. But beneath their feet, the mountain has crossed a threshold. Gases have built to their limit. Rocks have cracked wider. The weight above can no longer suppress the upward swell. The earth, which has waited for thousands of years, is ready to speak its first syllable in a new language of ash and motion. And how does it begin? Not with thunder, not with a sudden roar. It begins with a shiver, a subtle movement, like the first breath of someone waking from a dream. A ripple in the ground, so soft it could be missed, but it is followed by another, then another, and then the silence breaks, not into chaos, but into transformation. The sky darkens not from clouds, but from ash. A plume rises, not as flame but as shadow, a column of memory pulled from the planet's depths and ridden across the sky. This is the Earth remembering out loud. The supervolcano does not erupt like a firework. It is not a moment, but a choreography of rupture and collapse. First, the magma chamber begins to empty, driven by the release of pressure above. Gas expands explosively as the molten rock decompresses, pushing up through conduits and vents. The land fractures. The old caldera rim buckles. The air fills with the sharp sting of sulfur and the low roar of earth tearing itself open. The sky, once blue, becomes a canvas of greys and reds, filled with the powder of pulverized stone. Ash does not fall like snow. It falls like memory fine, weightless, unrelenting. It covers forests, silences rivers, coats the backs of animals and the roofs of homes. It travels on wind, settling thousands of miles away. A veil of stillness drapes across the land. The light changes, the sounds soften, and beneath the surface, magma continues to rise, to spill, to reshape. You, drifting inside this moment, do not feel fear. You feel awe, for the earth is not destroying itself. It is rewriting. There is no cruelty here, no malice in this eruption. It is not punishment, it is process. What was gathered must now be released. What was compressed must now expand. What slept must now awaken. And though human time recoils from such scale, geological time understands. This eruption is only one heartbeat in the long pulse of the planet. It has happened before. It will happen again. But for now, you are witnessing it from within the stillest part of yourself, the part that no longer seeks to control, only to feel. The mountain collapses inward. The great bowl of the caldera sinks as the chamber beneath it empties. Lakes boil. Forests vanish in silence. The shape of the land is no longer what it was. But from this transformation, new shapes will rise. New rivers will find paths through the ash. New soil will be born. The earth speaks destruction only so it can make room for renewal. And you, in this dreaming state, begin to recognize the rhythm. It is the same rhythm that governs your own becoming. You gather thoughts, pressure, questions. You breathe, you hold, you ache. And then, one day, you speak, not always in words, sometimes in art, in action, in rest, in change. What you've held inside for so long finds its way out. It breaks the surface. And though it may feel like breaking, it is also release. You are not unlike the mountain. Your eruptions make way for new landscapes, too. The air grows quiet now. The main eruption has passed. The earth does not scream. It exhales. Pyroclastic, flow-searing clouds of ash and gas have raced down the slopes, reshaping everything in their path. And yet, beneath the heat and motion, something else begins to stir. Stillness. The mountain has spoken. It does not need to keep shouting. What had to be said is said. In the days and years to follow, light will return. Ash will settle. Seeds dormant for decades will awaken in the nutrient-rich ground. New life will emerge, not in spite of the eruption, but because of it. Ecosystems reborn, lakes redrawn, mountains reshaped. You begin to understand the earth is not a fixed thing. It is a storyteller, and eruption is one of its voices. You lie now in the afterglow, not of fire, but of understanding. The earth speaks not to terrify, but to remind, to show that silence is not always stillness, and that pressure is not the end of peace. You begin to trust that change, even when it breaks things open, is not always a wound. Sometimes it is a beginning, a deep breath taken after the long hold. And just as your breath settles into deeper rhythm, a final thought moves across the edge of your dreaming mind. If the earth remembers through fire, how does it forget? The world is quiet now, but not the same. You drift slowly through the aftermath, not with sorrow, but with a strange kind of reverence. The eruption has passed. The earth has spoken. And what remains is not ruin, but a new kind of blanket of ash, thick and pale, covering everything in a soft and weightless forgetfulness. You walk through this grey hush, each step sinking gently into the layers of memory that are no longer memories at all. This is not soil yet, not even dust. This is the breath of the mountain, stilled and settled, fallen from sky to land in a single sweeping gesture. This is ash, and ash remembers nothing. You bend down, brush your fingers along the surface. It's fine as flour, cold and dry, but not without weight. In this place, entire forests once stood. Now, there are only outlines, shadows beneath the Grey trees buried in place, rivers filled in and frozen, homes erased without malice, not by wind or flood, but by a rain of ground-up time. Volcanic ash is not soft, though it looks like snow. It is made of glass, shattered rock, microscopic shards of earth torn from deep within the crust, flung into sky, and drifted down to coat the world. And as you walk, the powder clings to your steps, it coats your breath, it clouds the outlines of everything. Nothing here speaks of what came before, and yet everything does, because ash, in its silence, is a kind of cleansing, a kind of blank page. It covers without choosing, it settles without resistance. It is not the fire itself, not the rupture or the roar. It is what remains after the planet exhales, after the memory has burned clean. You think of this as loss, perhaps, but the earth does not mourn in the way you do. It does not cling to what it was. It does not write memoirs in stone. It changes completely, and the ash is the transition. You wander through this blankness, through valleys that no longer have names. The land is featureless for now, but not empty. Beneath the ash, seeds sleep, roots curl in quiet anticipation. Microbes stir, ready to rewrite the chemistry of the soil. Life is not gone, it is waiting, hidden, asleep beneath the grey. The world begins to reset, and so do you. You pause beside what was once a tree. Only the tips of its branches remain above the ash, like fingers from a dream trying to reach daylight. Around you, the terrain is soft, almost shapeless. Ridges are smoothed, paths erased. But this, too, is part of the cycle. Before something new can grow, the memory of the old must settle, and this settling is slow. Months, years, even centuries may pass before color returns to the surface. But beneath, already, the world is warming, shifting, preparing. You feel this quiet from the inside, the same way your body settles after a fever, the same way your breath slows after a cry. Not everything you remember needs to remain. Not every chapter must be reread. The ash that falls over the earth now is the same that falls over parts of your own inner world, covering regrets, softening edges, allowing old fires to go quiet. You are not burying things, you are letting them rest. Volcanic ash changes everything it touches. It blankets ecosystems, it chokes engines, it turns air into stone dust. But given time, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes the first layer of new soil. It captures minerals in forms that plants can later use. In places like Iceland, Indonesia, and the Pacific Northwest, ash fields eventually bloom. What looks like death becomes the richest kind of life. And perhaps that is why the earth forgets in this way, not to lose, but to prepare. You continue walking, and with each step the land becomes more silent, more strange. The sky is pale, the horizon indistinct. You might as well be walking through a dream. There are no birds, no footprints, no color, but you do not feel alone. You feel suspended inside a moment of becoming, because this isn't aftermath. This is threshold. You are between what was and what will be, and the ash, this soft, whispering blanket, is the bridge. Even in the harshness of its fall, ash does not discriminate. It covers all equally, the old stone temple and the sleeping deer, the high ridge and the low valley. It flattens distinction. And in that flattening, something humbling emerges. We are all dust, the planet seems to say, not as a warning, but as a comfort. We all return to this quiet. We all begin again from it. The ashes of Pompeii, of Santorini, of Pinatubo, of Tambora Chuan told a different story, and yet all began the same way, with the earth forgetting the old to make space for the new. You reach a slope now, and climb slowly. The ash slides beneath you like powdered glass. Each step displaces tiny avalanches. You leave a trail, but it won't last. The next wind will erase it. There is no permanence here. But that, too, is part of the healing. You are not here to build. You are here to witness what it means to surrender the past. And somewhere near the ridge, you stop and look back. The valley is blank, smooth, muted. No paths, no names, no maps. But somehow it no longer feels empty. It feels quiet in a deliberate way, as if the earth has entered a sacred pause. And you, too, feel the urge to be still, to stop pressing forward, with the urgency of memory. Not everything needs to be held. Not everything needs to be known. You think now of the people who live in the shadow of such sleeping giants. Their lives built in cycles, rebirth. Some return after devastation, some do not, but all of them, in some way, know the truth that the land remembers only what it needs to. The rest, it lets go. The earth does not carry trauma in the way you do. It expresses, it reshapes, and then it softens. The ash is not denial, it is transition. You sit on the ridge now, breathing the thin air. You brush your fingers through the grey powder beside you. Somewhere beneath it lies the beginning of something. Seeds you can't see, microbial worlds too small for your eye. Their work has already begun, and you, too, begin again. Quietly, not with decisions or declarations, but with stillness, with listening. You do not need to rush to plant something new. The ash must settle first. It always does. Even your breath seems to change here. It deepens, slows, as if in the presence of something very old and very kind. You close your eyes and let the silence wrap around you, not because it is empty, but because it is full, full of change, full of potential, full of things not yet named. And just before sleep takes you fully, one last thought drifts across your inner sky. If forgets everything, who teaches the earth to remember again? The ash lies still, thick and pale as memory. Time passes in the way only the earth understands, without hours, without urgency, with nothing but the slow rearrangement of silence. You lie among the drifts, not buried, not lost, but folded gently into a world that is pausing. Above you, the sky begins to shift. It is no longer dark with ashful. Light, tentative and diffuse, filters through again. And beneath you, something begins to stir. Not loudly, not visibly, but deeply. Emotion so small it cannot be seen. The stirring of seeds, seeds that do not know they are waiting. They lie beneath the ash in the hush of the earth, surrounded by silence, by stillness, by the cooled breath of a world that once roared. There is no signal, no command, no calendar, marked with dates of blooming, and yet they wait. They do not plan, they do not remember, they do not even understand waiting, but they wait. Because that is what life does when it is hidden inside a pause. It waits without knowing. You drift deeper into this world beneath the world, where tiny, sleeping forms hold the pattern of forests yet to be. Grains of life, no wider than a breath, tucked into the dark, their skin wrapped around instructions, written long before the mountain exhaled. They do not seek the sky. Not yet. They listen not with ears, but with chemistry. They read the softness of moisture, the rhythm of temperature, the hush of danger passing, and when the signs are right, not before, not too late, they begin, quietly, irreversibly. And that's how it starts. Not with a leaf or a blossom, but with a rupture. A cell wall softens, a root tip nudges outward, a shoot coils toward imagined sunlight. The seed does not know what comes next. It doesn't need to. It only needs to begin. Beneath the ash, 1,000 such beginnings unfold like breath, held and then released. Not all will survive. Not all are meant to. But that is not failure. It is the way of becoming. You are floating in this underworld of readiness now, weightless among these sleeping miracles. Around you, the air is warm, damp, enriched by the minerals the ash has left behind. Volcanic soil is often the richest on Earth, not despite the fire, but because of it. The eruption brought elements from deep within the planet to the surface. Phosphorus, magnesium, gifts for the future, scattered like offerings across the blank land. The seeds do not analyze this. They receive it. They absorb. They begin. You pass a tiny sprout as it uncurls from its seed coat. It is fragile, translucent, reaching upward with no knowledge of how far the sky might be. It grows not because it knows it will succeed, but because it cannot help but try. That is the essence of life, this trying, this movement toward light, even in darkness. You, too, know this impulse. Even when you've been buried in silence, even when your world has been reset, something in you still leans upward, even before you understand why. And just as the seeds do not need certainty to begin, neither do you. Life after upheaval rarely starts with a plan. It starts with small motions, a thought softened, a breath taken, a word spoken where there has been none. You are not expected to know what comes next. You are only asked to begin, gently, quietly, without knowing, above the soil, where the ash begins to thin and the land begins to remember its contours. Green returns, first as hints, mosses, then grasses, tiny ferns unfurling like scrolls. These are not symbols of triumph, but of trust. Trust in time, trust in soil, trust in the pattern that always follows the pause. A few insects return, their wings whispering across the new leaves. Rain falls again, not as cleansing, but as invitation. The land has changed, but it is not broken. The memory of eruption is not erased, it is integrated. The earth carries it forward in each new root that finds its way through the ash. You think of the way human hearts try to heal after change. The way people speak of starting over, as if life could ever be erased and rewritten cleanly. But seeds know better. They do not start over. They start through. They grow from what remains, from the burned edges, from the mineral-rich debris. Your new life, too, does not erase the old. It grows from it, through it, because of it. In this way, the seeds teach. They do not preach. They do not instruct. But in their waiting, in their readiness, they show what it means to trust something larger than knowing. They do not rush the soil. They do not shout for light. They wait, and when the time is kind, they rise. You lie now on a slope that was once grey with ash, now softened with green. A small tree has taken root nearby. It is not tall, not old, but it holds its leaves with grace, as if it remembers the fire only as something that made space for it. Around it, others begin to join. A young forest, quiet and unhurried, beginning in silence. You feel something similar rising within you, not joy, not yet, but the space in which joy could someday grow. You are not healed, but you are beginning, and perhaps that is enough. You think of those seeds, again waiting, unknowing. They did not wait with hope. They waited because it was written into them. Because life is not something you have to believe in to carry. It is something you are. And even in the stillest, darkest places, it does not vanish. It holds, it listens, it waits. And as you rest among these green beginnings, a final question unfurls in your mind like a leaf turning toward light. If seeds can trust what they cannot see, can you? The air smells different now. It is no longer thick with sulfur or silent with ash, but touched with the green scent of chlorophyll and the soft tints of new bark. You are not walking through the same world that erupted. The earth beneath your feet has been rewritten by time, softened by rain, warmed by sun, and coaxed back into life by the patient roots of things that grow slowly and without fear. A forest is rising where once there was only smoke, and you are there to witness it, not as a visitor, but as someone returning home to a memory that never stopped becoming. The trees are young, yet already they carry the elegant posture of resilience. Their trunks are slender but firm, their branches outstretched not in defense but in welcome. They are the children of fire, born not in spite of destruction but because of it. This is not a rebirth in metaphor, it is an ecological truth. Many of these species, these trees and shrubs and grasses, are adapted to flame. Their seeds only crack open with heat. Their roots survive beneath scorched soil. Some even need the clearing of fire to find space and light. To them, the eruption was not an end. It was an invitation. You walk slowly beneath their canopy, which is not yet high, but dappled and flickering with the promise of shadow. Sunlight drips through in patterns, falling on young ferns, on mushrooms sprouting from charred stumps, on insects busy with their rebuilding. Life hums quietly here, not rushed, not afraid. This is the tempo of return, the music of things that remember how to grow. There is no regret here, only process. Even the burned trunks that still stand like ancient bones among the new growth are not mourned. They are hosts. They are teachers. Moss grows on their bark. Birds nest in their hollows. They are part of the story, not scars from it. And you, as you walk, feel your breath match the rhythm of the land. There is no need to hurry. The forest is not a place of speed. It teaches through its layers, through undergrowth and canopy, through soil and wind, through patterns of decay and emergence. You kneel beside a tiny sapling pushing through a crack in a fallen log. Its leaves are small, tender, barely unfolded, but already it knows how to find light. It bends toward the sun without effort, without needing to understand why. Like all things born of this place, it follows a quiet code, etched not in thought, but in its very being. The forest, though young, already contains memory, not personal. Memory, not names and dates, but ecological memory rooted in the soil. Whispered between species, passed through mycelial threads and chemical signals. The fungi beneath the surface, the invisible web that binds tree to tree, tree to insect, insect to decaying leaf have returned as well. Their filaments stretch through the ash-rich ground, exchanging nutrients, signaling danger, nurturing saplings. The forest is not a collection of trees. It is a conversation. You pause to listen. The wind brushes the branches in slow waves. A bird calls, high and short. Somewhere, a small animal rustles through the underbrush. These are not distractions. They are the voices of return. You remember now how long silence lasted here, how complete it was after the eruption. And yet, already, the world is filled again. Not with noise, but with presence. There's something deeply humbling in this, to see the earth build again what was erased, to witness how destruction becomes design, how loss becomes invitation. You think of the way fire clears space not only in forests, but in hearts. The way some things have to burn away not to be punished, but to be cleared, to let light fall again in places that had grown too dense. You think of your own inner wildness, once overgrown, once suffocated beneath the canopy of old beliefs or fears, and how, when it burned, you thought the loss was total. But now you sit was the beginning of a forest. Not all things that burn are ruined, not all endings are voids. Here, in this quiet, rising forest, you feel something ancient, an unnameable pressing gently against your skin, the way trees know things without needing to speak, the way time layers itself into rings of growth, each year added not as replacement, but as continuation. This forest does not forget the fire. It holds it, carries it, builds around it. That is how it remains alive. As you continue walking, you pass a grove of trees all the same age, growing in a perfect circle. Their trunks are spaced evenly, their branches lifting toward the sun like dancers mid-reach. This is a firing, a memory written in growth. The parent tree in the center, long gone now, once fed them. And when it fell, it gave everything nutrients, space, light. Around its absence, life emerged. You touch one of the trunks, feel the smoothness of youth, the silent strength within. This is how forests grieve not by withering, but by giving. The path curls now along a creek that didn't exist before the eruption. It was born from melted ice, from rains that followed the ash. The water is clear, cold, and filled with silt. Along its banks, reeds sway. Tiny fish flicker like thoughts just out of reach. This is how the earth writes its next chapter's fluid. Soft, unforced. The creek does not mourn the rock it wears away. It simply flows, and in doing so, reshapes. You kneel by the water, cup it in your hands, and drink. It tastes of stone and sky. It is not ancient yet, but it will be. You feel it. Join you, enter your body, flow through you as it flows through the land. You are part of this now, just a witness, but a participant. The fire reshaped you too. And now, in this green hush, you begin to understand why it had to come. The trees ahead are taller. A ridge rises in the distance. You climb it slowly, without urgency, and when you reach the top, you see the full mosaic spread beneath, you ash fields now sprouting green, rivers drawing new lines, meadows where once there were cliffs. A phoenix landscape, reborn not in myth, but in patient layers of growth. The horizon, though altered, is not less beautiful. It is more real. And so you sit there, held by the hush of leaf and wind, and you wonder, how many times has the world done this before? How many forests have grown from fire? How many will again? And how many within you? You close your eyes and feel your own inner canopy rising. Not all the way yet, not fully grown, but rooted, lush with potential, alive in its own way. The part of you that once feared endings now knows each ending holds a pattern. Each pattern holds a forest, and just before you fall asleep to the hush of leaves, one final thought rises with the wind. If forests can grow from fire, what else within you is waiting to return? There is a path through the ash, though it wasn't made by feet. It was carved by movement older than memory by water, which never forgets how to flow. As you follow the river, still young in the new landscape, you feel its story unfolding. Not in words, but in shapes. Its curves are not random. Its current does not rush. It moves as if it's listening to something beneath it, something buried, something it once knew. This is a river that remembers the mountain. It begins in silence, far above, in snowmelt, pooled at the edge of the old caldera. That snow, once resting upon the charred rim, carries within it the breath of clouds, the cool hush of upper winds, and the dust of distant places. It melts and gathers, not with drama, but with purpose. As it begins to trickle downward through cracks and gullies carved by fire, it doesn't protest the ash-hit partners with it. Water does not fight what stands in its way. It shapes itself. Around obstacles, it learns the shape of the land until the land is shaped by it. And so the river flows not with power, but with memory. You walk beside it now, your feet tracing the same line that the water follows. It gurgles gently beside you, widening into shallow pools and narrowing into silver threads. Along its banks, green shoots lean in, insects hover, frogs return. This is the path life takes when the earth opens itself. For though the eruption scattered stone and silence, the river gathers. It pulls the pieces together not to restore what was, but to nourish what's becoming. There's something ancient in its rhythm, something older than any tree or mountain or even sky. Water has moved like this since the planet was young. It has worn down continents. It has carried life between coasts. And here, in the aftermath of fire, it is once again the quiet architect of restoration. Not with force, but with persistence. Water remembers in motion what stone forgets in stillness. You step onto a flat rock warmed by the morning sun, and from here you watch the water fold over itself, cresting and tumbling with small joys. Beneath its surface, particles of ash swirl, suspended, not yet settled. They too are part of the remembering. Volcanic ash is rich in minerals, iron, calcium, potassium ore, of which the river collects, mixes, and offers to the land. You watch a leaf fall into the current and disappear, carried gently downstream. Nothing clings here. Everything moves, and so does your mind, carried gently by the flow. You think of all the ways you've tried to stay still, to hold tight to what once was, but the river teaches you otherwise. It tells you that healing doesn't mean anchoring. It means moving through, washing over, changing shape when needed. You are not a monument to what you've survived. You are the stream that carries your story forward. The river bends ahead, vanishing briefly into a stand of young trees. You follow, and the light changes. Here the forest thickens, shadows dance on the water's back, and the air cools. Small creatures scurry across the moss-covered banks. Birds call from the upper branches, and all around the sound of water becomes a kind of lullaby, repeating a single idea in 100 variations. Keep going, keep going, keep going. You pause to kneel by the edge. Dip your hands into the cold current. It bites, but not harshly. It wakes you, not with urgency, but with clarity. You watch the water weave around your fingers, a tapestry of reflection and flow, and you realize the river is not what it carries, not the ash, not the silt, not the light dancing on its back. It is the movement, the journey, the act of reaching. You rise and follow it deeper into the valley, where the slopes once burned now bloom with color. Poppies rise through the ash. Ferns lace the banks. Here, the river has carved its new shape from the mountain's old bones. Boulders split by heat now guide the current. Debris has become foundation. Nothing was wasted, nothing discarded. Even destruction has been rewritten into design, and perhaps you begin to feel the same is true for you. You recall the places within yourself that once collapsed, times you fell, burned, ended. At the time, it felt like ruin. But now, walking beside this river, born from the same mountain that once exploded, you understand something deeper. The collapse was only the start of the flow. Your waters found new channels. Your story bent, curved, kept moving. The river narrows ahead, squeezed between two tall cliffs, blackened still by eruption, but softened now by moss and mist. Water rushes through, louder, more urgent. You stand at the edge and feel the pulse of it, not as threat, but as strength. In this passage, the river speaks with more force, not anger, not defiance, but declaration. It says, I am still here. The mountain broke, but I kept flowing. The path changed, but the journey did not end. And then, just beyond the tightest bend, the river opens again. It widens into a basin, newborn lake reflecting the sky like a dream. You walk to its edge, and everything is still. Birds float. On the surface, a deer drinks from the far side. The wind barely moves. This is where the river pauses, not because it has ended, but because even flow needs rest. The lake is a breath held in peace. It does not rush to the sea. It allows the memory of fire to settle. Ash sinks. Clarity begins. You sit on a rock at the edge of this mirror. Look at yourself reflected not as before, but as you are now supined, shifted, flowing. There are things you still carry, sediments swirling within, but you no longer fear them. They are part of what makes your waters rich. Without them, you would only skim the surface. With them, you deepen. You watch a ripple spread across the lake, widening slowly, gently, as if the water itself were dreaming. And as the sun sinks lower, touching the water with gold, you feel that this journey, the walk from eruption to river, from fire to flow, was not only the story of the land, it was your story, to dot. And as twilight gathers and your breath begins, too slow, one soft question forms across the surface of your thoughts. If the river remembers the mountain, who remembers the river? The lake behind you grows quieter with distance, though it never stops reflecting the sky. As you climb gently into the higher land, where the air is thinner and the winds move more freely, you begin to notice something new, something not of the earth, but floating far above it. The clouds have changed. They are no longer stained with ash or scattered in panic. They move slowly now, with a grace that seems deliberate, as if they've come not only to pass over the land, but to bless it. These are not the clouds of endings, but of beginnings. They drift over a world that is no longer burning, a world that has become new. Above you, they stretch like sailcloths across an open, sky-wide, weightless, unworried. Their edges curl softly, billowing not with storm but with patience. And as you watch them, something inside you shifts. You are used to looking down, to the soil, to the roots, to the layers where healing begins. But now you look up, and it is the sky that begins to teach you. It speaks in thermals, in vapor, in slow choreography. And it says this: what once fell will rise again. What was torn apart can also drift free. Clouds are born from evaporation water, drawn upward, transformed, made lighter. The The same river you walked beside is part of this now. It has released pieces of itself to the air, letting go not in grief but in cycle. What was once solid has become sky. What was once held now moves. You think of this as surrender, but the clouds know better. It is continuation. As you walk along the ridge, the view opens wide. You see the mosaic of rebirth, below forests blooming through ash, rivers meandering like silver threads, and here and there, small patches of green where once there was only grey. But it is the sky that draws your gaze, because in it you begin to see what the land cannot show. The clouds carry memory not of fire or soil, but of movement itself. They know no boundaries, no maps. They travel across nations, across oceans, across time zones, and they carry with them not only water, but heat and pollen and microscopic life. Each cloud is a vessel of becoming. You pause on a flat stone to watch a slow procession pass overhead. The shapes change constantly, yet never hurried. A swirl becomes a feather becomes a wave. You begin to realize that clouds are not things, they are processes, events. They are made not only of water, but of temperature, of wind, of time. Just like you, you are not a fixed shape. You are not the sum of what has settled. You are what moves through what drifts, what reforms, what softens and reforms again. And in this high place, touched by wind, your breath begins to slow, not because you are tired, but because you are listening. The sky speaks slowly, without voice. It tells stories in silence. Stories of where the water has been, of mountains it passed, of oceans it once touched. The vapor above you may have risen from the very lake you left behind, or from another world entirely. Rain that fell in ancient jungles, snow from glacial peaks. Each cloud carries a map written in temperature and altitude, not in ink. And you, looking up, become part of that map, not as observer, but as destination. You feel it then that these clouds are not only overhead, but within you. The water in your blood once moved through these skies. The hydrogen in your bones was born in stars that died before this mountain even existed. You are not beneath the clouds. You are of them. You too drift across the surface of the world. You, too, rise from loss and fall again as nourishment. You, too, are never still. The wind picks up slightly, brushing your skin with a softness that feels like memory. Somewhere far away, thunder grumbles not with threat, but as a reminder. Clouds do not drift forever. They return, they condense, they weep, and in that weeping they restore. Rainfall may seem like an end, but it is a homecoming. What rose must fall, what floats must land, not in punishment, in balance. You lie back now on the stone, your face to the sky, and let the clouds pass above. They do not need your attention. They do not perform. They move because they must, because the sky is their current, and time their tide. And you, in watching them, feel your own tide begin to turn. You no longer wish to hold still. You wish to drift, to rise, not with fire, but with breath, to evaporate the heaviness that still lingers in your thoughts, and to let it move upward, not away, but into a shape that can travel, that can cool, that can fall again some day as nourishment. You begin to think now of the future not as a place you must run toward, but as a sky you are already part of. The choices you make ripple upward. The emotions you soften evaporate into the spaces. Between things, what you let go of rises. What you carry lightly moves farther. The more you trust the wind, the farther you drift, and when the first drops begin to fall soft, scattered, like the whisper of sleep, you do not run. You remain still, let them fall on your skin. They are not cold, they are returning. This water has been many things: mist, fog, stream, ocean. Now it is falling on you, and soon it will run into the soil again. Your body accepts it, your breath matches it, and in that moment you realize you are both the cloud and the mountain, both the sky and the root, both what drifts and what holds. And just before the rain deepens into a lullaby, one final thought touches the edge of your mind like vapor clinging to stone. If clouds remember every place they've been, what do you carry each time you rise? The rain that began as a hush becomes a rhythm. It falls gently now, not as an ending but as a slowing. Each drop tucks itself into the folds of leaf and root, into the cracked stones and soft moss that cover the mountainside. The forest breathes deeper, the air thickens with calm, and you, standing still beneath the trees, feel the world settle around you like a blanket. It is not sleep in the way animals know it, not sleep with dreams or waking. This is the earth's sleeper, deeper stillness. A pause so vast it moves slower than time, so subtle it seems like nothing, but it is not nothing. It is preparation, it is restoration, it is the soil closing its eyes. You walk quietly now, every footstep softened by wet leaves. Around you, the colors dim not from shadow, but from rest. Ferns curl tighter, petals close. The clouds that earlier drifted above now embrace the peaks, low and slow, like wool stretched across the spine of the world. You are high in the mountains again, but it no longer feels exposed. It feels held. The landscape has folded inward, conserving itself. The rivers run slower, the wind lies down. This is how the planet breathes when it exhales completely. The earth does not sleep all at once, not in chapters or cycles that can be read from the outside. It rests in places, in pulses. A field goes fallow, a tree stops blooming, a lava flow cools until it is stone. But inside those pauses, life continues. It's quiet work. Roots keep weaving, fungi keep trading, seeds keep listening. Sleep, for the earth, is not absence. It is repair, the kind of stillness that mends rather than erases. You think now of your own need for sleep, not just at night, but the deeper kind, the kind that doesn't always come when called, the kind that follows a silence within you and spreads softly until thought itself gives way. You remember the times you resisted it, when you thought stillness meant weakness or emptiness or stopping. But here, in this hushed highland soaked in rain and wrapped in mist, you finally understand sleep is not stopping. It is trusting. It is knowing that you do not need to hold everything at once, that you are allowed to set things down. The trail leads you into a grove of older trees. Their trunks are wide, their roots like great hands pressed into the mountains. Back, these trees have seen eruptions, storms, and centuries of quiet. They know how to wait, how to bend, how to go still without fear. Their bark is thick with lichen, soft to the touch. You place your palm against one and close your eyes. You feel nothing and, then, everything. The pulse of the forest, slow and deep. The conversation of roots below, the slow turning of minerals into nourishment. It is not fast, it is not loud, but it is life. You sit beneath one of these trees and let your body follow the land's rhythm. You are not falling asleep, yet but you are nearing it. Your breath is long, your thoughts are light, and in this quiet, you begin to notice the language of rest. A drop of water sliding down your arm, the smell of moss warmed by rain, the way the mist clings to the space between branches, the way the mountain does not ask anything of you. It just is. You begin to wonder if perhaps you've been part of this rhythm all along, even when rushing, even when lost. The body has always known how to slow, how to return. Your heartbeat, that ancient metronome, continues whether you notice or not. Even in stress, it holds a shape meant for calm. The nervous system unwinds when given stillness. The mind softens when not pressed. You realize now that you are not separate from the earth's sleep. You are a small echo of it. Night begins to arrive. Not suddenly, not with fanfare. It seeps in like water into dry roots. The sky darkens to a color older than language. The last birds call and then quiet. Somewhere nearby, an animal settles into its den. The trees do not change. They do not brace for night. They simply receive it. Their leaves slow, their branches relax. You lie back and let the night fold around you. You look upward through the canopy and see stars appearing, one by one, like thoughts in a still mind. The mist thins in places, and the constellations blink between the branches. You feel yourself loosening, not fading, but softening. The earth beneath you is firm but warm. The mountain no longer speaks of eruption. It speaks only in breaths. Now in slow movements of cloud and silence, and in that silence you feel something return, not as a thought, not as a memory, but as a knowing. This is what healing feels like. Not fireworks, not finality, just rest, just being . And as sleep begins to touch your edges, you think of how even stars must rest. Not in the way we do, but in cycles of brilliance and quiet. Even galaxies drift. Even black holes sleep between meals. There is no shame in stillness, no failure in pause. You are allowed to not rise. You are allowed to wait. You are allowed to let the world hold you. You exhale, and it is the last motion you need to make. The earth takes the rest, your weight, your heat, your breath. You give yourself to it, not to disappear, but to rejoin. You are no longer the observer. You are the mountain. You are the mist. You are the soft rain in the leaves. You are the sleep of the earth. And just before your thoughts dissolve completely, a final wonder stirs within you like a whisper in the soil. If even the earth must sleep, what might it be dreaming of? There is no alarm, no thunderclap of awakening. The world returns not with noise, but with breath. The first light slips in like a secret threaded through mist, silvering the edges of leaves, warming the rain that still clings to bark. You don't open your eyes right away. Your body stirs before your mind does, guided not by thought but by rhythm. The earth is rising, and you are rising with it. Not jolted, not forced, simply lifted, gently, by the turning of the world. A single bird calls, tentative, then another answers. Their voices do not pierce the silence. They grow from it, as if the hush of night simply changed shape. The canopy above you is no longer a ceiling, but a veil. Light passes through it, dappled and soft, like water trickling through lace. You lie still a little longer, held by the soil beneath you, by the memory of sleep, by the rhythm of all things that wake without hurry. Eventually, your breath deepens. You stretch not to reach, but to return. The muscles that held you through the night remember what it is to move. Your joints recall the slow bend of limbs. Your skin tingles where the air touches it. You are not fully awake, not yet. You are in that sacred seam where dream and day blend, where the earth is still whispering in the language of rest. When you sit up, the world meets you like a friend. No demand, no expectation, just presence. The mist curls around your ankles as if to say, "We're still here." You notice the droplets on the leaves, hanging like punctuation marks in a poem too old to translate. The trees are statues in breaths, unmoving but alive. Their trunks pulse with quiet purpose, their roots sunk deep into the same earth that held your sleep. You remember now. You never left the rhythm. You only joined it more fully. You begin to walk, slowly. Each step a note in the song of waking. The trail curves without sharpness. No destination calls you. There is only unfolding. Around a bend, you come to a clearing where the grass has grown taller, its tips golden in the rising light. Small insects hum at its edges. A rabbit darts, then pauses. You both regard each other not as intruder and resident, but as fellow travelers. There is no need to speak. The morning already says everything. You pause by a stream you hadn't noticed before. It wasn't hidden. It was simply waiting for you to be quiet enough to hear it. The water slips over smooth stones, not rushing, not stalling, just moving, like breath, like thought, like time. You kneel beside it, cup your hands, and drink. The cold startles you but gently. It reminds you that aliveness is not a fire, but a flicker, a steady flame that does not burn but warms. As you rise again, you begin to feel the fullness of morning. The sun crests the ridge behind you, casting long, slow shadows that stretch like arms across the ground. You walk in your own shadow now, elongated and soft-hedged. The light touches your face, your chest, your hands. You don't feel brighter, you feel clearer, as if the night had peeled away everything extra. What remains is not more true. You pass a tree where the bark has split from age or storm, revealing layers within. It's not broken, it's just open. You touch the wound, it feels warm, alive. You realize then that waking does not mean being whole. It means being here in whatever shape you are. The earth doesn't wake perfect. It wakes persistent, with cracks and moss and soft eruptions of beauty from places once scorched. You begin to see the same pattern in yourself. The way your scars have softened, the way your breath has learned patience, the way your eyes, still heavy with sleep, now seek not to analyze, but to wonder. Farther along, you come to a stand of trees all leaning slightly east, not by design, but by history. Years of wind have shaped them. Years of light have taught them where to reach. You understand now that this is how all things grow, not in straight lines, but in conversations with their surroundings. The trees have listened to the wind and bent. You, too, have bent. But you have not broken. You have listened. You have learned how to turn toward light, even if that light is faint, even if you're not sure where it leads. A breeze lifts now through the leaves, not loud, not forceful, just enough to carry scent. You breathe in the forest, the dampness of roots, the sweetness of bark, the electric edge of new growth. It is not one smell. It is a memory in layers. You inhale and you taste the journey, the fire, the ash, the silence, the rain, the slow return, and now the light. You stop at a ridge, one you recognize, the same place where the sky opened in chapter 1, but now it is changed. Or maybe you are. Below you, the valley rolls out in green and gold, rivers threading through it like veins in a living hand. You see where the lava once carved through the forest, but the wound has filled, not erased, remembered. Ferns grow there now. The stone is softened with moss. The burn became a path. The loss became a lesson. The earth did not forget. It transformed. You stand in silence. The wind moves your hair. Your hands rest by your sides. You are not overwhelmed. You are not afraid. You are filled with something, not quite joy, not quite peace, something gentler, something wider. You think, for a moment, that this is what love might feel like when it has nowhere to go but everywhere. You begin to walk again, slowly, down the trail that leads not away, but into the rest of the day, into the rest of your life. There is no grand return, number, thunderous rebirth, only continuity, only presence. You are not someone waking from a long dream. You are someone who never stopped becoming, and as the sky opens fully and the sun reaches its arms across the valley, a quiet knowing lingers in you like birdsong after flight. The earth has taught you how to sleep. Now it teaches you how to wake. Not quickly, not perfectly, but gently, always gently. The magma waits, quiet and vast, beneath forests and lakes and cities that never hear it. Its breath is measured in millennia. Its silence stretches longer than memory, but it holds no malice, only the slow rhythms of planetary balance and rebirth. Tonight, as your body softens into rest, know that the earth, too, knows how to be still, and beneath you the slumbers not to scare you awake, but to remind you, even the greatest powers can sleep.